I remember the day everything shattered like it was yesterday, though it's been years now. My name is Elena, and I've always been the quiet one in the family. The observer, the dreamer, the one who fades into the background while others shine. Growing up in our modest suburban home in upstate New York, I learned early on that silence was my shield. My sister, Victoria, was the star. Bold, beautiful, with a laugh that could light up a room and a temper that could scorch it. She was 5 years older, the golden child who excelled at everything: school, sports, even charming our parents without effort. Me? I was the afterthought, the pleasant surprise, as Mom used to call me, though I often wondered if that was just a polite way of saying accident. Our family dinners were a ritual, a weekly attempt to glue together the fragments of our lives. Dad would grill steaks in the backyard, his broad shoulders hunched over the flames, while Mom set the table with her heirloom china, the kind that clinked delicately but carried the weight of generations. Victoria would breeze in late, her designer bag slung over one arm, regaling us with tales from her high-powered job in the city. And I'd sit there, smiling, nodding, contributing just enough to not seem rude. But beneath it all there was a current of unease, like a river running too fast under thin ice. That particular Sunday started ordinarily enough. The leaves were turning gold and crimson outside our bay window, and the air smelled of autumn, crisp apples and distant wood smoke. I had driven home from my small apartment in the next town over, where I worked as a librarian, surrounded by books that felt more like friends than people ever did. At 28, I was still figuring out my place in the world, content with my quiet routines, but always feeling that nagging pull of inadequacy when compared to Victoria. As I pulled into the driveway, I spotted her sleek BMW already parked there, gleaming under the afternoon sun. She must have arrived early, which was unusual. My heart sank a little. Early meant she had something to announce, some triumph to share that would inevitably make me feel smaller. I smoothed my simple blouse and jeans, took a deep breath, and walked in. "Mom? Dad?" I called out, hanging my coat on the rack. "In the kitchen, sweetie." Mom's voice floated back, warm as always. I found her chopping vegetables, her silver hair tied back in a ponytail. She looked up and smiled, but there was a tightness around her eyes that I hadn't noticed before. "Elena, darling, help me with the salad?" "Of course." I rolled up my sleeves and joined her, the rhythmic slicing of cucumbers a soothing distraction. Victoria was in the living room, scrolling through her phone, her legs crossed elegantly. She glanced up as I passed. "Hey, sis, you look rested." It was her way of saying I looked plain, unremarkable. I forced a smile. "Thanks, how's work?" "Insane. Closed a huge deal last week, 6 figures. But you wouldn't understand." She waved it off, returning to her screen. I bit my tongue and focused on the salad. Dad came in from the backyard, wiping his hands on a towel. He was a sturdy man, retired from his job as a mechanic, with calloused hands that spoke of hard work and quiet strength. "Dinner's almost ready, girls. Let's make this a good one." We gathered around the table soon after, the aroma of grilled meat and garlic bread filling the air. Mom lit candles, and for a moment it felt like old times, cozy, familiar. We said grace, a habit from our Catholic upbringing, and then dug in. Conversation flowed lightly at first. Mom talked about her book club. Dad shared a funny story from his fishing trip. Victoria dominated as expected, detailing her latest promotion. "They're talking about making me partner by year's end. Can you believe it?" "That's wonderful, Vicky," Mom beamed, using her childhood nickname. Dad nodded approvingly. "Proud of you, kiddo." I murmured congratulations, genuinely happy for her, but a familiar envy stirred in my chest. When the spotlight turned to me, as it inevitably did, Mom asked, "And how about you, Elena? Any news from the library?" I shrugged. "It's steady. We're planning a children's reading program next month. It's exciting." Victoria snorted softly, fork pausing midair. "Exciting? Reading to kids? Come on, Elena, that's not a career. That's a hobby." The word stung, but I laughed it off. "It pays the bills, and I love it." She set her fork down, eyes narrowing. "You know, I've been thinking. You're 28 now. When are you going to do something real with your life? Something that matters?" The table grew quiet. Mom shifted uncomfortably. Victoria, that's not fair. No, Mom, it needs to be said. Victoria leaned forward, her voice rising. Elena's always been like this, drifting, settling for less. Remember high school? She could have gone to a top college, but she chose community college instead. And now, a librarian? It's embarrassing. My face burned. I stared at my plate, the steak suddenly unappetizing. Vicky, please, but she wasn't done. You're nothing, Elena. Nothing compared to what you could be. You're wasting your potential, and it's dragging the family down. The words hit like a slap. Nothing. It echoed in my mind, reopening old wounds. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them back. Dad cleared his throat, his face pale. Victoria, that's enough. She rolled her eyes. Dad, you know I'm right. Someone has to say it. He set his napkin down deliberately, his hands trembling slightly. Actually, there's something I need to say. Something I've kept secret for too long. We all froze. Mom's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide. John, no. Not now. Yes, now, he said firmly, looking at me with an expression I'd never seen. Guilt mixed with love. Elena, you're not our biological daughter. The room spun. Victoria's mouth dropped open. What? Dad continued, his voice steady but strained. Your mother and I, we couldn't have children after Victoria. We tried for years, then we adopted you. But it's more complicated than that. I couldn't breathe. Adopted, the word felt foreign, impossible. All my life I'd felt out of place, but this? Mom was crying now. We love you, Elena, so much. Victoria recovered first, her shock turning to anger. How could you keep this from us? From me? Dad sighed. We wanted to protect you both. But Elena, there's more. Your birth mother. She was my sister. The revelation hung in the air like smoke. His sister? That made me his niece? My mind reeled, piecing together fragments of family stories I'd heard. Dad's estranged sister who died young, the one no one talked about. I had a sister, Maria, Dad explained, his eyes distant. She was troubled, got involved with the wrong people. She had you when she was just 18, but she couldn't care for you. She begged me to take you in. We adopted you legally, raised you as our own, but we never told anyone, not even you girls, to avoid the stigma. Victoria slammed her hand on the table. So Elena's my cousin? Not my sister? She's your sister in every way that matters, Mom snapped, defensive. But Victoria wasn't listening. She stood up, chair scraping back. This is insane. All these years and I'm the only real child. I sat there, numb, as the family I'd known crumbled around me. Nothing. Maybe she was right. That night, I didn't sleep. I drove home in a daze, the highway blurring through tears. How had I not seen the signs? The lack of baby photos, the vague stories about my birth, and Dad's sister, Maria. I remembered a faded photo in the attic, a young woman with my eyes, smiling sadly. The next day, I called in sick to work and spent hours staring at the wall. Questions swirled. Who was I really? Did this change everything? Victoria texted me. We need to talk. This is messed up, I ignored it. Instead, I dug through old boxes in my closet, searching for clues. Nothing. But the seed was planted. A need to know more about Maria, about my origins. Days blurred into weeks. Family interactions became strained. Mom called daily, apologetic, offering love. Dad was quieter, withdrawn. Victoria oscillated between anger and curiosity, peppering me with questions I couldn't answer. One evening, I decided to visit Dad alone. He was in his workshop, tinkering with an old clock. Elena, he said, setting down his tools. I'm sorry. Tell me about her, I whispered. Maria, he nodded, pulling out a shoebox from a shelf. Inside were letters, photos, mementos. Maria had been vibrant, artistic, but haunted by addiction. She loved you, he said. Gave you up to give you a better life. As I held a photo of her holding me as a baby, something shifted. I wasn't nothing. I was a survivor, a bridge between past and present. But the journey was just beginning. Victoria's words still echoed, and the secret's ripples threatened to drown us all. The weeks following Dad's revelation felt like navigating a house where all the walls had shifted. I went through the motions. Work, home, repeat. but nothing felt solid anymore. The library, once my sanctuary, now seemed too quiet, amplifying the noise in my head. Every book I shelved, every patron I helped, felt like a distraction from the question that consumed me. Who was Maria really? And what did it mean to be her daughter? I started carrying the shoebox Dad gave me everywhere, hidden in my tote bag like a talisman. It held fragments of her life, a Polaroid of her laughing at a beach, her dark hair whipping in the wind, a sketchbook filled with pencil drawings of flowers and faces, some half-finished, a letter, yellowed and creased, addressed to my little star. That was me, I realized, my throat tightening each time I read her looping handwriting promising to love me forever, even if she couldn't keep me. Victoria, meanwhile, was relentless. She called or texted daily, her tone swinging between accusation and fascination. How could you not know? She'd demand one day, then the next. Do you think she was like a junkie or something? I didn't have answers, and her questions only deepened my unease. Our parents, too, were struggling. Mom's calls were laced with guilt, her voice trembling as she offered to cook me dinner or drive over, just to talk. Dad was quieter, leaving voicemails that were mostly sighs and apologies. One evening, I sat cross-legged on my apartment floor, the shoebox open in front of me. The letter from Maria was in my lap, her words both a comfort and a wound. "You're my little star," she wrote, "and one day, you'll shine brighter than I ever could." I traced the ink, wondering what she'd think of me now. A librarian, not a lawyer or a CEO like Victoria, but someone who found joy in stories and silence. Was that enough? The need to know more about her grew like a hunger. Dad had said she died young, but the details were vague. Addiction, a car accident, a life unraveling too fast. I needed more than fragments. So I did what I always did when lost. I researched. I started with public records, scouring online databases for Maria Russo, born in the late 60s, died in the mid-90s. I found her obituary, a brief paragraph in a local paper that mentioned her vibrant spirit and tragic passing at 22. No mention of a daughter. No mention of me. The obituary listed a surviving brother, Dad, and a mother, my grandmother, who'd passed away years ago. But there was another name, a friend, Clara Hensley, who'd helped arrange the funeral. Clara. The name sparked something. Hadn't Dad mentioned a Clara once? A family friend who'd faded from our lives? I dug deeper, finding a Clara Hensley still living in a small town an hour away, now in her late 50s, running an art gallery. I hesitated for days before calling her. What if she didn't know about me? What if she did and didn't care? But the shoebox, sitting on my coffee table, urged me forward. I dialed her number, my hands shaking. "Hello?" Her voice was warm, slightly raspy, like she'd just been laughing. "Hi, this is Elena, Russo. I'm looking for Clara Hensley." "That's me." "Russo, you say? Are you related to John?" "He's my dad." I paused, then plunged in. "I'm calling about Maria, his sister. I'm her daughter." Silence stretched so long I thought the call dropped. Then, oh my God, Elena, Maria's little star. My breath caught. She knew. We talked for an hour, her voice a lifeline. Clara had been Maria's best friend, her confidant through the chaos of her final years. "She loved you so much," Clara said. "Giving you up broke her heart, but she knew John and Diane would give you a good life." "Can we meet?" I asked, desperate for more. "Of course. Come to the gallery. I have things to show you." The next Saturday, I drove to her gallery, a quaint brick building tucked between a bakery and a bookstore. Clara was waiting outside, her silver hair pulled into a bun, her eyes kind but searching. She hugged me like we'd known each other forever. "You look like her," she said, studying my face. Same eyes, same quiet strength. Inside, the gallery was a kaleidoscope of color, paintings, sculptures, sketches. Clara led me to a corner where a small canvas hung, a portrait of a woman with dark hair and a wistful smile. "That's Maria," she said. She painted it herself. I stared, my chest tight. It was like looking in a mirror, but softer, sadder. Clara handed me a bundle of letters tied with a ribbon. These were hers. She wrote them to you, hoping one day you'd read them. I spent hours at the gallery, reading Maria's words. She wrote about her dreams of being an artist, her struggles with addiction, her love for me. One letter described the night she gave me up, how she held me for hours, whispering promises into my tiny ear. "I'm not strong enough for you yet," she wrote. "But I'll always be with you." Driving home, I felt both heavier and lighter. Maria wasn't a ghost anymore. She was real, flawed, and mine. But the weight of Victoria's words lingered. "You're nothing." I wasn't. I knew that now, but her venom still stung. When I got home, I found a voicemail from her. "Elena, we need to talk. I'm sorry about dinner, okay? But this whole thing, it's messing with my head." I didn't call back. Instead, I planned. Clara had mentioned Maria's old apartment, still standing in a rundown part of the city. Maybe there were answers there, more pieces of her life. I decided to go, to see where she'd lived, where I'd been born. The apartment building was a faded brick structure, graffiti splashed across its walls. The landlord, an older man with a gruff voice, let me in after I explained who I was. Maria's unit was empty, stripped bare, but standing in the tiny living room, I could almost feel her. The windows overlooked a park, and I imagined her sketching there, dreaming of a better life. As I left, my phone buzzed. Victoria again. "I'm coming over tomorrow," her text read. "We need to sort this out." I wasn't ready to face her, but I knew I couldn't avoid it forever. The secret had changed everything. Our family, our bond, my sense of self. I clutched Maria's letters, vowing to hold on to her strength. Whatever came next, I wouldn't let Victoria define me. I was Maria's daughter, and I was starting to believe that meant something. Victoria arrived at my apartment the next evening, her knock sharp and impatient. I opened the door to find her standing there, arms crossed, her tailored coat immaculate despite the drizzle outside. Her blonde hair was pulled back tightly, accentuating the sharp lines of her face. For a moment, we just stared at each other, the weight of that disastrous family dinner hanging between us. "Elena," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "We need to talk." I nodded, closing the door. My apartment was small, cluttered with books and thrift store furniture, a stark contrast to her sleek city condo. She glanced around, her lips twitching as if suppressing a comment. I gestured to the couch and she sat, perching on the edge like she was ready to bolt. "I'm sorry," she started, surprising me. What I said at dinner, it was harsh. I was just shocked. This whole thing with you being adopted, it's a lot. I sat across from her, clutching a mug of tea for comfort. "It's a lot for me too, Vicky." She flinched at the nickname but didn't correct me. "I just don't get why they kept it from us, from me. I'm their daughter, their real daughter. I should have known." Her words stung, that real daughter, cutting deeper than I expected. I took a breath, steadying myself. "I'm their daughter too. And I didn't know either." She leaned forward, eyes intense. "But you're not, Elena, not really. You're, what, Dad's niece? It changes everything. Our whole childhood, I thought we were sisters. Now it feels like a lie." "It's not a lie," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "They raised me. They love me. That's real." Victoria sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I know they love you. I feel betrayed. And you're acting like it's no big deal, digging into this Maria stuff like it's some treasure hunt." "It's not a treasure hunt," I snapped. "She's my mother. I need to know who she was." "Your mother?" Victoria's laugh was brittle. "Mom's your mother. Maria was just some messed up girl who couldn't handle her own kid." I stood, anger flaring. "Don't talk about her like that. You don't know her." "And you do?" She shot back. "You're chasing a ghost, Elena. What's the point?" The point. I didn't have a neat answer, but I felt it in my bones. The need to understand Maria, to reclaim the part of me that had been hidden. "The point is I'm not nothing," I said quietly. "You said that at dinner, but I'm not, and Maria's part of why." Victoria's face softened, just for a moment, before her walls went back up. "Fine, do your thing. But don't expect me to play along. This family's falling apart, and you're just making it worse." She left soon after, the door clicking shut with a finality that echoed in my chest. I sank onto the couch, Maria's letters scattered around me, Victoria's words hurt, but they also fueled me. I wasn't making things worse. I was searching for truth. The next day, I called Clara again. Her voice was a balm after Victoria's venom. "I found something else," she said. "A journal. Maria kept it in her last year. I didn't want to overwhelm you before, but you should have it." I drove back to the gallery that weekend, my heart pounding. Clara handed me a worn leather notebook, its pages thick with Maria's handwriting and sketches. "She wrote this mostly when she was pregnant with you," Clara explained. "It's raw, Elena. She was in a dark place, but you were her light." Back home, I read the journal cover to cover, unable to stop. Maria's words painted a vivid picture. A young woman full of dreams, trapped by addiction and a toxic relationship with a man she called D. She wrote about painting to escape, about the joy of feeling me kick, about her fear that she'd fail me. One entry gutted me. "I want to be better for you, little star. But I'm so scared I'll drag you down with me." Tears blurred the pages. Maria hadn't been perfect, but she'd loved me fiercely. The journal also mentioned a place, a community center where she'd taken art classes, where she'd felt safe. I looked it up. It still existed. Now a nonprofit offering free classes to at-risk youth. I decided to visit, hoping to feel closer to her. The center was a low brick building in a rough part of town, its walls covered in colorful murals. Inside, it buzzed with life. Kids painting, laughing, creating. A woman named Rosa, the director, greeted me warmly. When I mentioned Maria, her face lit up. Maria Russo? Oh, she was a spark. So talented. She'd come in, quiet at first, then light up when she painted. Rosa showed me a mural in the back room, faded but vibrant. A starry night sky with a single bright star at its center. "Maria did this," Rosa said. "Said it was for her daughter." My knees weakened. I touched the star, feeling Maria's presence in every brushstroke. "Did she ever talk about me?" I asked. "All the time," Rosa said. "She was scared, but she wanted you to have everything she couldn't. She'd be so proud of you." Proud. The word felt foreign, but warm. I left the center with a sense of purpose, determined to honor Maria's memory. But when I got home, a letter was waiting in my mailbox. No return address, just my name in neat handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Stop digging, Elena. Some secrets are better left buried." My blood ran cold. Who knew I was searching? Clara? Rosa? Someone else from Maria's past? I called Dad, my voice shaking as I told him about the note. He was silent for a long moment. "Elena, be careful, Maria. She was mixed up with dangerous people. I thought they were gone, but..." "Dangerous people?" I pressed. "Like who?" He hesitated. "Her boyfriend, Daniel. He was bad news, drugs, crime. He disappeared after she died, but just watch your back." Fear prickled my skin, but so did resolve. Daniel. D from the journal. Whoever sent that note didn't want me uncovering Maria's past. But I wasn't stopping, not now. I was her daughter, her little star, and I was going to shine through the darkness no matter what. The anonymous note haunted me, its words looping in my mind like a warning siren. "Stop digging, Elena. Some secrets are better left buried." I tucked it into Maria's journal, not wanting it to taint her letters, but its presence lingered like a shadow. Who had sent it? And why now after all these years? The mention of Daniel, Maria's old boyfriend D from her journal, gnawed at me. Dad's warning about dangerous people only deepened the unease, but it also steeled my resolve. If someone wanted me to stop, it meant there was something worth finding. I started with Daniel. Maria's journal mentioned him sparingly, but each reference carried weight. "D promises things will get better, but his eyes don't match his words," she wrote once. Another entry, more desperate. "D's angry again. I can't leave, not yet. Not without you, little star." The journal ended months before her death, leaving gaps I couldn't fill. I needed more. Someone who knew Daniel, who knew what happened to Maria. Clara was my first call. Her voice was cautious when I mentioned the note. "Elena, I don't like this," she said. Maria ran with a rough crowd back then. Daniel was trouble, charming but dangerous. He dealt drugs, maybe worse. After Maria died, he vanished. I thought he was long gone. Do you know his last name? I asked, gripping the phone. Carter. Daniel Carter. But I don't know where he is now. Be careful, okay? Maria wouldn't want you hurt. Careful. The word echoed Dad's warning, but I couldn't stop. I searched online for Daniel Carter, a name common enough to yield dozens of results. I narrowed it down to the area, cross-referencing old arrest records and news articles from the 90s. I found a hit, a 1994 article about a drug bust, mentioning a Daniel Carter, 24, released on bail. No follow-up, no conviction. It was a lead, but a thin one. I decided to visit the community center again, hoping Rosa might know more. The center was busier this time, kids spilling out of classrooms, paint smudges on their hands. Rosa greeted me with a smile, but it faded when I showed her the note. This isn't good, Elena, she said, her brow furrowing. Maria had a knack for finding trouble, mostly because of Daniel. He'd show up here sometimes trying to pull her away from her art. She was trying to get clean for you, but he kept dragging her back. Did she ever say what happened between them? I asked. Rosa sighed, leading me to a quiet corner. She was scared of him toward the end. Said he was mixed up in something big, didn't say what. After she gave you up, she told me she was done with him. Then, the accident. Dad had mentioned a car crash, but the details were murky. Was it really an accident? I asked. Rosa's eyes darkened. That's what the police said. Drunk driver, head-on collision. But Maria was sober that night. She'd been clean for months. I always wondered. She didn't finish, but she didn't need to. Doubt settled in my chest like a stone. I thanked her and left. The mural of Maria's starry sky etched in my mind. That night I scoured the internet for her accident report. It took hours, but I found it in a digitized archive. Maria Russo, 22, killed in a collision on Route 9. The other driver, unidentified, fled the scene. No mention of Daniel, but the timing felt wrong. Clean for months, yet dead in a crash blamed on a drunk? The next day, I called Dad again. He sounded tired, his voice heavy with years of unspoken grief. Elena, why are you digging into this? It's the past. Because it's my past, I said. Dad, was Maria's accident. Suspicious? He was quiet so long I thought he'd hung up. There were questions, he admitted finally. The police couldn't find the other driver. I always thought Daniel had something to do with it, but there was no proof. He was gone by the time we buried her. No proof. The words stung, but they also lit a fire. I needed to find Daniel Carter. I started with social media, searching for any trace of him. Nothing definitive, but I found a profile for a Dan Carter, mid-50s, living in a nearby city. The profile was sparse, but a photo showed a man with hard eyes and a familiar jawline. Could it be him? I debated telling Victoria. We hadn't spoken since her visit, and her words still burned. Real daughter. Making it worse. But she deserved to know, didn't she? I texted her. Found something about Maria's past. Can we talk? Her reply was immediate. What now? You're obsessed. I ignored the jab and invited her over. She showed up an hour later, looking more tired than usual, her usual polish slightly frayed. What's this about? She demanded, sitting at my kitchen table. I showed her the note, told her about Daniel, the accident, my suspicions. Her face hardened. You're saying someone killed her? Elena, this is crazy. You're turning our family into a soap opera. Maybe it's not crazy, I said. Someone doesn't want me looking into this. That note proves it. She stared at the note, her fingers tracing the words. This is creepy. But what if it's just some prank? Or Clara trying to scare you? Clara loved Maria, I said. She wouldn't do this. Victoria leaned back, crossing her arms. Fine, say it's Daniel. What's your plan? Track down some ex-con from 30 years ago? You're a librarian, not a detective. Her words echoed her dinner outburst, but they lacked the same venom. I saw something new in her eyes, worry, maybe even fear. I'm not stopping, I said. Maria deserves the truth. So do I, she sighed, softening slightly. Just don't get hurt, okay? I don't like this. It wasn't an apology, but it was close. For the first time, I felt a flicker of our old sisterly bond, strained but not broken. After she left, I made a decision. I'd track down Dan Carter. I found an address linked to his name, a rundown house on the edge of the city. It was a risk, but I needed answers. The next evening, I drove there, my heart pounding. The house was squat, its paint peeling, windows dark. I knocked, but no one answered. A neighbor, an older woman watering her lawn, watched me curiously. "Looking for Dan?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual. "Know where he is?" "Moved out a month ago," she said. "Shady guy." Kept to himself. "You a friend?" "No," I said, "just looking into something." She nodded, like she'd heard that before. "Check the bar on 5th. He used to hang out there." The bar was a dive, all dim lights and sticky floors. I felt out of place, my cardigan and jeans screaming outsider. I asked the bartender about Dan Carter, showing the social media photo. He squinted, then nodded. "Yeah, Dan comes in sometimes. Haven't seen him in a while, though. You a cop?" "No," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Just looking for answers." I left with nothing concrete, but the neighbor's tip and the bartender's confirmation were enough to keep me going. Daniel was out there, and he was real. As I drove home, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You're getting too close." Fear surged, but so did defiance. Whoever this was, they knew I was closing in. Maria's death wasn't an accident, and Daniel Carter held the key. I was her daughter, and I wouldn't stop until I uncovered the truth, no matter how dangerous it was. The second text, "You're getting too close," sent a chill through me that didn't fade. I read it over and over, my fingers hovering over the screen, tempted to reply, to demand who was watching me, but I didn't. Whoever sent it wanted me scared, and I refused to give them the satisfaction. Instead, I saved the message, took a screenshot, and tucked my phone away. If Daniel Carter was behind this, he was closer than I thought. I couldn't sleep that night. Maria's journal lay open on my bedside table, her words mingling with the warnings in my head. "Dee's angry again," she'd written. "I can't leave, not yet." Had he been the one to silence her? The accident report, with its unidentified hit-and-run driver, felt like a lie now, a convenient cover for something darker. I needed to know more about Daniel, but I also needed to be smart. Reckless moves could put me in real danger. The next morning I called Clara again. Her voice was tense when I told her about the second text. "Elena, this is serious," she said. "Daniel had connections, people who protected him. If he's still around, you're stirring up a hornet's nest." "Do you know anyone else who knew him?" I asked. "Someone who might talk?" She hesitated. "There was a guy, Richie. He hung around with Daniel and Maria sometimes. Small-time dealer, but not as deep in as Daniel. I don't know if he's still around, but he used to work at a garage near the old steel mill." It was another lead, fragile but tangible. I thanked her and hung up, my mind racing. The garage was a 20-minute drive, in a part of town I rarely visited, gritty, industrial, with boarded-up warehouses and cracked sidewalks. I debated telling Dad or Victoria, but Dad would worry, and Victoria would call me crazy again. So I went alone, my heart pounding as I pulled into the gravel lot of Mike's auto repair. The garage smelled of oil and metal, its bays filled with cars in various states of disrepair. A man in his 50s, wiry with a graying ponytail, was wiping his hands on a rag when I approached. "You Richie?" I asked, trying to sound confident. He squinted at me. "Who's asking?" "I'm Elena. I'm looking into someone you might have known, Daniel Carter. From the 90s. His face tightened, just for a second before he shrugged. "Haven't heard that name in years." "Why you asking?" "He was involved with Maria Russo. She died in a car accident." "I'm trying to understand what happened." Richie's eyes flicked to the side, like he was checking for eavesdroppers. "Maria, huh? Sweet girl, messed up with the wrong guy. Look, I don't know much. Daniel was bad news, ran with some heavy people. Dealers, loan sharks, you name it. After Maria died, he split. That's all I got. Did you ever hear anything about her accident?" I pressed. "Anything strange?" He hesitated, then leaned in, voice low. "Word was, it wasn't no accident. Daniel was mixed up in some deal gone bad. Maria knew too much, maybe, but no one could prove nothing. Cops didn't care about a girl like her." My stomach churned. "Do you know where Daniel is now?" "Nah, he's a ghost. But if you're poking around, watch your back. People like him don't like questions." I left the garage with more questions than answers, But Richie's words confirmed my suspicions. Maria's death was no accident. Daniel had been involved in something big, and she'd paid the price. As I drove home, I kept checking my rearview mirror, half expecting to see someone tailing me. The texts, the warnings, they were real, and they were escalating. When I got home, I found another note slipped under my door. Same handwriting, same ominous tone. Last chance, Elena. Let it go. My hands shook as I read it, fear mixing with fury. Someone knew where I lived. This wasn't just a warning anymore. It was a threat. I called Victoria, my voice trembling as I told her about the note. Richie. Everything. She was quiet for a long moment, then said, I'm coming over. Now. She arrived 20 minutes later, her face pale but determined. Show me the note, she demanded. I handed it to her, and she studied it, her jaw tight. This is insane, Elena. You're in over your head. I know, I admitted. But I can't stop. Maria deserves justice. Victoria sighed, setting the note down. You're so stubborn. But I get it. If someone killed her, they don't get to walk away. What's your next move? Her support, however grudging, surprised me. I need to find Daniel. Richie said he was tied to dealers, maybe loan sharks. I'm thinking of checking old police records. See if there's anything on him or his associates. That's dangerous, she said. But her tone wasn't dismissive. If you're doing this, I'm helping. I don't want you getting hurt. We spent the evening digging through online archives together, something we hadn't done since we were kids working on school projects. Victoria's sharp mind cut through the noise, finding a 1995 article about a drug ring busted near the steel mill. Daniel Carter was mentioned as a person of interest, but never charged. Another name popped up, Victor Malone, a known dealer who served time and was released in 2005. He was still alive, running a pawn shop downtown. Malone might know something, I said. If he worked with Daniel, he could point me to him. Victoria nodded, but her eyes were worried. If you go, I'm coming with you. No arguments. The next day, we drove to Malone's pawn shop, a grimy storefront cluttered with old guitars and dusty electronics. Victor Malone was a hulking man in his 60s, with a scar across his cheek and eyes that saw too much. What do you want? He asked, barely looking up from his counter. I'm looking for Daniel Carter, I said, my voice steady despite my nerves. He knew my mother, Maria Russo. Malone's eyes narrowed. Maria. Yeah, I remember her. Tragic what happened. Daniel's long gone, lady. Haven't seen him in decades. I didn't believe him. Someone's threatening me to stop looking into her death. Know anything about that? He laughed, a harsh sound. People get threatened all the time. Doesn't mean nothing. My advice? Leave the past alone. Victoria stepped forward, her voice cold. If you know something, tell us. We're not leaving until you do. Malone smirked, but something in her tone made him pause. All right. Daniel was mixed up with some bad people, guys I worked for. Maria got caught in the middle. Her accident. Let's just say it was convenient for certain folks. That's all I'm saying. Convenient for who? I pressed. He shook his head. You don't want to know. And if you're smart, you'll drop this. We left the shop, my mind reeling. Victoria grabbed my arm as we reached the car. Elena, this is getting scary. Malone's hiding something. What if he's the one sending the notes? Maybe, I said. But I think it's Daniel. He's the key. That night, alone in my apartment, I opened Maria's journal again, searching for any clue I'd missed. A loose page fell out, one I hadn't noticed before. It was a sketch of a man, hard eyes, sharp jaw, a snake tattoo curling around his neck. Underneath, Maria had written, D, I'm scared he'll never let me go. My heart stopped. A snake tattoo. The bartender had mentioned a guy with a snake tattoo at the bar on 5th. It was Daniel. He was still out there, watching me, warning me. But I was Maria's daughter, and I wasn't backing down. The truth was close, and I'd face whatever came next to find it. The sketch of Daniel with the snake tattoo burned itself into my mind, his hard eyes staring out from Maria's journal like a warning from the past. I'm scared he'll never let me go, she'd written. And now those words felt like a prophecy. The texts, the notes, the whispers of danger, they all pointed to him. Daniel Carter was no ghost. He was alive, close, and desperate to keep his secrets buried. But I was Maria's daughter, and her fear wasn't going to stop me. It was going to drive me. I went back to the bar on 5th the next evening, my nerves taut as a wire. The place was as grimy as before, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the low hum of conversation. I'd brought Maria's sketch, folded carefully in my pocket, hoping someone would recognize the tattoo. The same bartender was there, wiping down the counter with a rag that looked dirtier than the surface. I slid onto a stool, my heart hammering, and ordered a soda to blend in. "Back again?" he said, raising an eyebrow. "Still chasing that guy?" I nodded, unfolding the sketch and sliding it across the counter. "This is him. Daniel Carter. You mentioned a guy with a snake tattoo. Is this the one?" He glanced at the sketch, his expression unreadable. "Yeah, looks like him. Comes in every couple weeks, usually late. Keeps to himself, pays in cash. Why you so interested?" "He's connected to my mother," I said, keeping it vague. "She died a long time ago. I need to talk to him." The bartender leaned closer, his voice dropping. "Listen, lady, I don't know what you're after, but guys like that don't like being found. If he's your guy, he's trouble. Always has been. Has he been in lately?" I pressed. He shrugged. "Not for a week or two, but I'd steer clear if I were you." I thanked him and left, the sketch burning a hole in my pocket. Outside, the night air was cold, and I scanned the street, half expecting to see Daniel lurking in the shadows. Nothing. But as I got into my car, my phone buzzed with another text from an unknown number. "You don't listen, do you? Stay away from the bar." My breath caught. They knew where I was. I locked the doors and drove home, checking my mirrors the whole way. When I got to my apartment, I double-checked the locks and pulled the curtains tight. Fear was a constant now, but so was determination. Daniel was close. I could feel it. The next morning, I called Victoria. She answered on the first ring, her voice sharp with worry. "Elena, what's going on? You sound freaked out." I told her about the bar, the sketch, the new text. She was silent for a moment, then said, "This is getting out of hand. You need to go to the police." "And tell them what?" I asked. "I have no proof, just notes and texts. They'll think I'm paranoid." "Then let me help," she said. "I know a guy, a private investigator. He's discreet, used to work with my firm on corporate cases. He can dig into Daniel without you putting yourself in danger." I hesitated. A PI felt like crossing a line, like admitting this was bigger than I could handle. But the texts were escalating, and I wasn't naive enough to think I was safe. "Okay," I said finally. "Set it up." Victoria came through quickly. That afternoon, I met her at a coffee shop to talk to her contact, a man named Paul Grayson. He was in his 40s, unassuming in a gray jacket, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog everything. I showed him the sketch, the notes, the texts, and told him everything. Maria's death, Daniel's connections, the suspicions about the accident. Grayson listened quietly, taking notes. "This is tricky," he said when I finished. "Carter's a ghost, like you said. No recent records, no address. But the texts and notes mean someone's watching you closely. I'll start with the phone numbers, see if I can trace them. And I'll look into Carter's old associates, Malone, maybe others. But you need to lay low. No more solo trips to bars." I nodded, though laying low felt like giving up. Victoria squeezed my hand under the table, a rare gesture of solidarity. "He's good, Elena," she said. "Let him do this." For the next few days, I tried to follow Grayson's advice. I went to work, kept my head down, avoided the bar. But Maria's journal called to me, her words a reminder of why I was doing this. One entry stuck with me. D took me to a place by the river, said it was his boss's spot. I didn't like it. Too quiet, too hidden. A place by the river. It was vague, but it was something. I mentioned it to Grayson when he called with an update. "No luck on the phone numbers yet. Burner phones, untraceable," he said. But I found something on Malone. He's still connected to some low-level dealers. And there's a property by the river, an old warehouse tied to a shell company. Could be the place your mother mentioned. I'm checking it out. "Don't go alone," I said, my stomach twisting. He chuckled. "I've been doing this a while, Elena. I'll be fine." But I wasn't. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every creak in my apartment made me jump. I called Dad, needing his voice to ground me. "Elena," he said, his tone heavy with guilt. "I should have told you about Maria years ago. I thought keeping it quiet would protect you." "It's okay, Dad," I said, though it wasn't. "I just need to know the truth." "I know," he said. "But if Daniel's out there, he's not the kid he was. He's dangerous. Promise me you'll be careful." "I promise," I said, but my mind was already racing. The warehouse by the river. It felt like the key, a place where Maria's past and my present might collide. 2 days later, Grayson called again. "I checked out the warehouse," he said. "It's abandoned, but there's signs someone's been there recently. Cigarette butts, tire tracks. And I found something else. A storage unit registered to Daniel Carter, not far from the warehouse. I'm getting access tomorrow." My heart raced. "Can I come?" "No," he said firmly. "You stay put. I'll let you know what I find." Waiting was torture. I spent the day at the library, shelving books with shaking hands, jumping at every loud noise. Victoria texted, checking in, her messages a mix of worry and encouragement. "Grayson's got this," she wrote. "You're doing this for Maria. She'd be proud." That night, alone in my apartment, I opened Maria's journal again. The sketch of Daniel stared back at me, his snake tattoo a dark curl against his skin. I was close, so close to uncovering what happened to her. But as I turned the page, a knock at my door made my blood run cold. It was late, too late for visitors. I grabbed a kitchen knife and crept to the peephole. No one was there. But on the floor, slipped under the door, was another note. "You can't hide from the truth." Neither could she. I locked the door, my heart pounding. Daniel was out there, and he was coming for me. But I was Maria's daughter, and I was ready to face him. The note. "You can't hide from the truth." Neither could she. Sat on my kitchen counter like a taunt, its words daring me to keep going. My hands trembled as I read it again. But fear was no match for the fire Maria's journal had lit inside me. Her sketch of Daniel, with that snake tattoo curling around his neck, was a tether to her past, and to the truth about her death. I was so close, but every step forward felt like walking a tightrope over a pit. Daniel was out there watching, and now he knew where I lived. I called Grayson first thing the next morning, my voice barely steady as I told him about the new note. "This is escalating," he said, his tone grim. "Someone's desperate to shut you down. I'm heading to that storage unit today. Stay put, Elena. I mean it. I will," I lied. Staying put wasn't an option. Not when the answers were so close. I waited an hour, then grabbed my keys and drove to the address Grayson had mentioned, a storage facility near the river warehouse. It was a gamble, but I couldn't sit idle while someone else chased my mother's truth. The facility was a maze of orange and gray units, surrounded by a chain-link fence. I parked a block away, scanning for Grayson's car, but saw nothing. My phone buzzed, Victoria checking in. "Where are you?" Her text read, "Grayson just called. He's worried." I ignored it, slipping through the gate when a delivery truck distracted the guard. The unit number Grayson had given me, 214, was in the back, its padlock gleaming new against the rusted door. I didn't have a key, but I didn't need one to know this was Daniel's. A faint smell of cigarette smoke lingered, and a single tire track cut through the gravel nearby. Someone had been here recently. I was about to leave when I heard footsteps. Instinctively, I ducked behind a nearby unit, my heart pounding. A man appeared, tall, lean, with graying hair and a snake tattoo just visible above his collar. Daniel. It had to be. He glanced around, his eyes sharp, then unlocked the unit and slipped inside. I held my breath, every nerve screaming to run, but I stayed, watching through a crack in the fence. He emerged minutes later, carrying a small duffel bag. As he turned, our eyes met for a split second. His face hardened, recognition flashing before he bolted. I froze, panic rooting me to the spot. He knew I'd seen him. My phone buzzed again, another text from the unknown number. "You were warned." I ran back to my car, my pulse racing, and called Grayson. "I saw him," I blurted. "Daniel, at the storage unit. He had a bag and he saw me." "Damn it, Elena," Grayson snapped. "I told you to stay put. Get out of there now. I'm on my way." I drove home, my hands shaking on the wheel, checking my mirrors for any sign of Daniel. When I got to my apartment, I locked the door and wedged a chair under the knob. Grayson arrived an hour later, his face a mix of anger and concern. "You're lucky you're not hurt," he said. "I checked the unit after you called. It's empty now. But I found this inside." He handed me a crumpled photo. Maria, smiling, holding a tiny baby. Me. On the back, in her handwriting, "My little star, safe at last." My throat tightened. "He kept this," I whispered. "Why?" "Maybe guilt," Grayson said. "Maybe something else." I'm digging into his known associates, but this guy's slippery. Those texts? Still untraceable, but the fact that he's running means he's scared. Victoria showed up soon after, her face pale. "You're an idiot," she said, pulling me into a hug. "You could have been killed. Why didn't you tell me you were going?" "I didn't want you to stop me," I admitted. "But I saw him, Vicky, it's real. He's involved." She sighed, sitting beside me. "Okay, so what now? You can't keep chasing him alone." "I'm not alone," I said, glancing at Grayson. "But I need to know what he's hiding." "That bag, what was in it?" Grayson shook his head. "Could be anything, drugs, money, evidence. I'm working on tracking him. I've got a contact at the DMV pulling recent photos, and I'm checking CCTV near the warehouse. But Elena, you need to back off. Let me handle this." I nodded, but my mind was already racing. Maria's journal mentioned a boss Daniel worked for, someone tied to that river warehouse. If Daniel was running, maybe he wasn't the only one scared. Maybe this boss was still out there pulling strings. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Daniel's eyes, the way they'd locked onto mine. I opened Maria's journal, searching for anything I'd missed. A single line stood out, buried in a frantic entry. "D says the boss knows about you. I have to keep you safe." My heart stopped. The boss knew about me, her baby. Was that why she gave me up? To protect me from them? The next day, I met Grayson at a diner to go over his findings. He'd tracked down a name, Frank Sullivan, a former drug trafficker who owned the warehouse in the 90s. Sullivan was still alive, living quietly in a suburb under a new name. "He's retired," Grayson said. "But guys like that never really leave the game. If Daniel's running, Sullivan might know why." "Let's talk to him," I said, my voice steady despite the fear. Grayson shook his head. "Not you, me. If Sullivan's involved, he's dangerous. Stay with Victoria, keep your head down." I agreed, but as soon as he left, I called Clara. "Ever hear of Frank Sullivan?" I asked, her voice tightened. "Maria mentioned him once. Said he was Daniel's boss. Someone you didn't cross. Why?" "I think he's connected to her death," I said. "And maybe to the threats I'm getting." "Elena, please," Clara said. "Stop this. Maria wouldn't want you in danger." But I couldn't stop. I went to the library, using my access to dig into Sullivan. Old articles linked him to a drug ring. But he dodged convictions, his name fading after the 90s. A recent address popped up in a public record, a house in a quiet neighborhood. Against my better judgment, I drove there, telling myself I'd just look. The house was unremarkable, a split level with neatly trimmed hedges. I parked across the street, watching. A man in his 70s emerged, watering his lawn. Sullivan? He looked harmless, but Maria's words echoed. "Someone you didn't cross." As I watched, a car pulled up. A familiar figure stepped out. Daniel. My blood ran cold. They spoke briefly. Then Daniel handed him the duffel bag. I snapped a photo with my phone, my hands shaking, and sent it to Grayson. "Sullivan's house. Daniel's here." Seconds later, my phone buzzed with a new text. "You're playing a dangerous game, Elena." I drove away, my heart in my throat. Daniel and Sullivan were connected, and they knew I was watching. But I was Maria's daughter, and I was done running. The truth was in that bag, and I was going to find it, no matter the cost. The photo I'd snapped of Daniel handing the duffel bag to Sullivan felt like a live wire in my hand, crackling with danger and possibility. I couldn't stop staring at it, the grainy image proof that I was closing in on the truth about Maria's death. But the latest text, "You're playing a dangerous game, Elena." was a cold reminder that I wasn't just chasing answers. I was being hunted. My apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a trap, every shadow a potential threat. I was Maria's daughter, though, and her courage, her refusal to break despite her fear, pushed me forward. Grayson called early the next morning, his voice tight. "I got your photo. That's definitely Daniel, and Sullivan's no retiree." I dug deeper. Sullivan's been running a low-key operation, moving money through shell companies. That warehouse? It's still active, a front for something. I'm guessing drugs or worse. The bag Daniel gave him could be evidence, cash, anything. "What's in the storage unit?" I asked, my heart pounding. "Nothing now," he said. "Daniel cleared it out after you saw him. But I got a lead on Sullivan's current address. Not the suburban house, a second property, a cabin upstate. I'm heading there tonight to scope it out. Stay put, Elena. No more stunts." "I won't," I said, meaning it this time. Seeing Daniel's eyes, that flash of recognition had shaken me. I wasn't reckless enough to chase him again, not yet. But staying still didn't mean doing nothing. I called Victoria, filling her in on the photo and Grayson's plan. "I'm coming over," she said immediately. "You're not staying alone with those creepy texts." She arrived within the hour, her usual polish replaced by a fierce protectiveness I hadn't seen since we were kids. "This is insane," she said, pacing my living room. "You're messing with people who don't play nice. What if they come after you?" "They already are," I said, showing her the latest text. "But I can't stop now. Maria knew something big enough to get her killed. I owe her this." Victoria's eyes softened. "I get it, I do. But you're my sister, Elena, blood or not. I don't want to lose you." Her words hit hard, healing a wound I hadn't realized was still raw. "You won't," I said. "Grayson's good at this. He'll find out what's in that bag." We spent the day together, something we hadn't done in years. Over coffee, she admitted. "I was awful at that dinner. Calling you nothing. I was angry, confused. But you're not nothing, Elena. You're braver than I ever gave you credit for." I smiled, tears pricking my eyes. "Thanks, Vicky. That means a lot." That evening, Grayson sent an update. "Cabin's remote. Signs of activity, tire tracks, lights at night. I'm staking it out. Stay safe." I tried to focus on Victoria's chatter about her work, but my mind was with Grayson, imagining what he'd find. Maria's journal lay open on my coffee table, her final entry haunting me. "I told Dee I'm done. He says the boss won't let me walk away. I have to protect my little star." She'd known she was in danger, and she'd given me up to save me. Now, I was walking into the same shadows she'd tried to shield me from. Around midnight, my phone rang. Grayson. "Elena, I found something," he said, his voice low, urgent. "The cabin's a drop point. I saw Daniel there meeting another guy. Big, scarred, probably Sullivan's muscle. They moved crates into a van. I couldn't get close enough to see what, but it's not legal. And I found a ledger in the trash. Names, dates, amounts. Maria's name was in it, dated the week she died. My blood ran cold. What does it mean? She was involved in their operation, maybe unwillingly. The ledger lists a payment to DC, Daniel, same day as her accident. It's not proof, but it's close. "Where's the ledger now?" I asked, with me. "I'm heading to a contact at the police, someone I trust." "This is bigger than we thought, Elena. Sullivan's still running a network, and Daniel's his errand boy. Stay with Victoria, and don't open your door to anyone." I hung up, my hands shaking as I told Victoria everything. Her face paled. "This is proof, Elena. They killed her. We need to tell Mom and Dad." "Not yet," I said. "Not until Grayson gets the ledger to the police. If Sullivan's network is still active, they'll cover their tracks if we tip them off." She nodded, but her eyes were scared. "I'm staying here tonight. No arguments." We barely slept, jumping at every creak. At dawn, my phone buzzed with a text from Grayson. "Police have the ledger. They're moving on Sullivan. Stay put." Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. An hour later, my doorbell rang. Victoria and I froze, staring at each other. I crept to the peephole, nobody. But on the doorstep was a small package, my name scrawled in that familiar handwriting. Inside was a single item, a locket, engraved with a star. My breath caught. It was Maria's, mentioned in her journal. "I bought a locket for my little star, to keep her close. I opened it, and inside was a tiny photo of her holding me, her smile radiant despite her pain. Tucked beside it was a note. "You found the truth. Now live for her." Tears streamed down my face. Victoria hugged me, her own eyes wet. "She loved you so much," she whispered. Hours later, Grayson called with news. Sullivan and Daniel had been arrested. The ledger tied them to a decades-old drug ring, and Maria's name linked her death to a hit ordered by Sullivan. Daniel had carried it out, staging the crash to silence her. The police were building a case, using the ledger and other evidence Grayson had uncovered. I sat on my couch, clutching the locket, Maria's journal in my lap. The truth was out, but it didn't erase the pain. She'd died to protect me, her little star from the darkness she couldn't escape. But I'd found her, honored her, and brought her justice. Victoria squeezed my hand. "You did it, Elena. You're not nothing. You never were." I smiled through my tears, feeling Maria's love in the locket's weight. "I know," I said. "I'm her daughter." And with that, I closed the journal, ready to live for her, carrying her light into the future she'd dreamed for me.